What is up, my Lorcana Goons? Welcome back to the Lorcana Goons channel. My name is Kevin, and today I have for you the top 8 breakdown from the pack Return to the Mim online tournament hosted by Thea Beastie. Now, this tournament was a free tournament with a prize pool of over $1,000. Now, if you don't know who Thea Beastie is, she's a member of the Lorcana community who has been putting on these free tournaments, these charity tournaments, and they do Twitch streaming as well. And they're really into the game, and they've been doing so much for the Lorcana community that 270 people turned out for this free tournament. It wasn't the biggest tournament we've had because the last one was this same organizer and it was 280 people, but this was one of the biggest Lorcana tournaments to date. And we have the top 8 breakdown, which isn't all Ruby Amethyst this time, which is pretty cool. But let's look at the pricing real quick. Top 8 received $50, fourth place got $100, third place $150, second place $300, and first place received $600 for free. Can you believe that? That's pretty dope, man. It's always good to see the players being able to benefit from competitive play. You know what I mean? So huge shout out to Thea Beastie, huge shout out to Lorcana Play Network, the pack, everyone involved in putting this tournament together. I know it probably wasn't the easiest thing ever, but oh my goodness, so awesome. And an awesome top 8 that we're gonna get into as well, because it's not all Ruby Amethyst this time. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this content and you're a Lorcana Goon, because it does support the channel. We have the top 8 breakdown ready for you here. It was 3 Ruby Amethyst, 3 Amber Steel, 1 Sapphire Steel, and 1 Emerald Amber Mufasa deck. So big shout out to all these players who made top 8. It was a pretty competitive tournament, 9 rounds of Swiss, just like the other one that happened 2 weeks ago. And some very familiar names in this top 8 breakdown that we're about to go over. But there is some spicy text in here, like this first list in top 8 by Sizzy Lee. They're playing a Amber Steel variant that we've been seeing pick up a lot more play on Pixelborn and online through certain content creators. And this Amber Steel list is not really going to be playing the same way the other Amber Steel lists play, in a more traditional format where they're playing flutes or they're playing cards like Whole New World. No. This list does not play any Whole New World, does not play any Grab Your Swords either, and we even have 1 tech copy of Piglet. This list is consisting of 4 of the following: Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, Lilo, Stitch New Dog, Simba, Protective Cub, Sleepy, Doc, Hercules, the bodyguard Hercules, Prince Never Gives Up, Rapunzel, Tiana. We also have 4 Strength of a Raging Fire and 4 Let the Storm Rage On. Then we're playing 2 copies of the following. We have Benja, we have Cinderella Stout-Hearted, and we have Moana. That's the 5 ink Moana and Amber. Pretty awesome. And then we have 1 of the following: 1 Beast Tragic Hero, aka Sad Boy Beast, and 1 Piglet. Now, Piglet is a 3 ink character that has a 2/4 stat line and quests for 2 lore. Pretty good character if you just need a quest, those like that extra lore in my opinion. But it's looking like you only need a 1 in the deck, so I do like that 1 tech Piglet in this Amber Steel list. This list is really going to take advantage of tempo. It's going to be a much more aggressive list than some of the other Amber Steel variants you might be used to. Overall, they ideally want to go turn 1 Lilo, turn 2 Sleepy, so they can start questing for a bunch of lore immediately. Obviously, you want to protect your Lilo with a Simba. Once you get to turn 3, you definitely want to start dropping cards like Hercules or Prince Never Gives Up, so that you can protect your little guys, or even Doc, so that you can drop a Moana a turn earlier, or a card like Beast Tragic Hero 1 turn earlier as well. It also just helps you play more characters when you start questing with Doc, because you have so many 1 ink characters. That's basically a free character every time you quest with Doc. And then the bread and butter is obviously the Tiana package, which is just for Tiana, but when you have no cards in your hand, Tiana is not going to let your opponent activate any actions basically. So the fact that you don't play much like cards to refill your hand like Whole New World or multiple copies of Beast Tragic Hero makes sense when the game plan seems to be to quest as much as you can before you drop Tiana, so that when you have Tiana and your other characters on board, your opponent cannot grab your swords, they cannot be prepared, they can't let it go. Their only outs are going to actually be to challenge or to use character abilities to remove your character. Tinkerbell Giant Fairy seems like it would hit hard against a deck like this, but even then, by the time you try to resolve your Tinkerbell Giant Fairy, if you're not shifting into it, this deck is going to outpace you, which is pretty crazy because this deck gains lore really fast. And I've been seeing a lot of people play this on Pixelborn Ladder because it is an alternative to playing an aggressive deck that does allow you to play some steel cards for removal. You know what I mean? The other aggressive deck in the format is the Ruby Amethyst Hyper Aggro deck, and that deck does not play any removal. And this deck, it seems just as aggressive, and it's actually playing that extra Strength of a Raging Fire and Let the Storm Rage on, which just combos so well with Cinderella Ballroom Sensation. So you're getting like pseudo draw power with Let the Storm Rage on, but you're not refilling your entire hand, so you can actually still get rid of your hand by the time that Tiana comes down. And you're playing Rapunzel too, so if you don't necessarily want to rely on that Tiana card combo where your opponent can't activate any actions, you can just refill your hand with Rapunzel, which is always good. Next we have another Amber Steel list by Albert Schwartz. This was in top 8. This list looks a little more traditional. It is playing Flute, Whole New World, etc., and we're gonna go over this list fairly quickly. For Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, for Stitch New Dog, for Queen Goons, for Simba, and we have for Ariel, for Queen Commanding Presence, for Stitch New Dog, for Cinderella Stout Hearted, Let the Storm Rage On, Strength of a Raging Fire, Whole New World, and Grab Your Swords, and we can't forget Sleepy's Flute at 4. Then we have 2 of the following. We're playing Cinderella Knight in Training, Giant Tinkerbell, Be Our Guest, World's Greatest Criminal Mind, and that's going to be the deck to round that off. So the Sleepy's Flute deck is pretty standard when you play it like this. Your goal is really to just see the flutes as fast as you can, because every single time you activate a song, you can just gain a bunch of free lore. So if you end up opening up with a flute or 2, even 3 flutes, every time you activate a song, you're going to be able to quest for that much lore, which is pretty free in my opinion. Especially in a deck like this where you're playing Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, Ariels, the Queen shiftables, and you're able to use sing songs fairly easily. And then we have 4 Cinderella Stout Hearted to really ensure that we get the maximum amount of value from our songs, because when we use a song, we're able to challenge ready characters, which is really good against the discard deck. It's really good against some of these Mufasa decks that have been floating around lately. When you can attack the challenged characters for free, you're able to trigger a Mufasa before they can even quest with it, if you can get that off in time, which is pretty cool. This deck super consistent as well. It's what it's looking like, and your main goal is to resolve Flute and Whole New World usually. And in general, I like this deck a lot. I just don't like playing it this format personally, because I just don't like Whole New World this format personally. It's kind of more of a personal opinion, but deck is extremely powerful still. I think Amber Steel Song Flute is going to stick in the meta for a while, and I do want to point out that World's Greatest Criminal Mind is still seeing play in the meta. So if you are playing a deck like this, just know that they're probably going to be holding the World's Greatest Criminal Mind for your Cinderella Stout Hearted, because that is an immediate out. Plus, against the Ruby matchups, you can use World's Greatest Criminal Mind against Maui and against Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, which helps a lot. Next in top 8, we have a Amethyst Ruby deck list from top 8. Fairly consistent, nothing too crazy in this one, playing for the following: Olaf, Minnie Mouse, Mim Snake, Mim Fox, Maleficent Sorceress, Surfer Minnie, Merlin the Goat, 4 Maui, Tremaine, 4 Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, Friends on the Other Side, and Be Prepared. All of those at 4. Then we have 3 of the following: Merlin Rabbit, Peter Pan's Shadow, Teeth and Ambitions, and we have 2 of the following: Ursula, and that's going to be all aside from the 1 Sorcerer's Spellbook in the deck. Now, this list looking pretty consistent. One of the things I want to point out is obviously the Peter Pan Shadow. Peter Pan Shadow is pretty good. It adds pressure to the board as an evasive character. In the mirror match, when your opponent plays a mini surfer, you can contest it with a Peter Pan Shadow. Although it might take 2 turns to clear the Minnie Mouse surfer, the fact that you can even rush the Minnie Mouse on turn 4 is kind of important. Plus, if you respond with a Mim Fox to their Minnie Mouse surfer on turn 4, you can drop Peter Pan Shadow, and then your Mim Fox gains evasive. So now that Mim Fox can challenge the Minnie Mouse surfer, and oftentimes the opponent won't play around that. You know what I mean? They'll quest with their Minnie Mouse surfer thinking they're good, because all they see is a fox on your side of the board, and you drop Peter Pan Shadow, and boom, they just negged. That's a really good play. I'm sure that happens a lot in a deck like this. And then Ursula is the more recent addition to the meta that we've been seeing. Everyone's playing Ursula now. You want some extra bombs in this deck, aside from the 4 Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, and 1 Spellbook on the side here. It's looking like some people have been playing just the 1 Spellbook because it kind of acts like a 5th goat. You know what I mean? It's not inkable, however, but you know, when you see it, it does get you there. But I'm just not a big fan of 1-ofs in Lorcana, even in a deck like this where you draw cards constantly. This deck might be the exception though, because you draw so many cards cards in Ruby Amethyst, right? Now we have the Sapphire Steel list that was in top 8. This was piloted by George Machado. Shout out you, and shout out Pro Play Games, because if you didn't know, George Machado, I believe, is the owner, or he's like one of the main dudes from Pro Play Games, and as you can see, he plays games on a pro player level. So you guys should check out Pro Play Games and definitely give them a follow too, because they also do tournaments in real life, and I'm not sure if online yet, but they do a lot of tournaments. But we're gonna break down this list. It is playing 4 of the following: Flavorsham, Cogsworth, Sad Beast, Giant Tinkerbell, Nothing to Hide, Let It Go, Whole New World, Grab Your Swords, Popsicle, and Fishbone Quill. Then we have 3 of the following: Corella DeVille, Prince Eric, Bell, Strange But Special, 3, Hades Infernal Schemer, Smash, and that's going to be all for 3 of us in the deck. And we have 2 of the following: Mickey Mouse, Detective, and then only 1 Beast Hard-Headed. Now, Beast Hard-Headed was super popular last format, but this format not seeing nearly as much play, you know what I mean? It's looking more like everyone's shifted to playing Benja, but you might want to consider playing a card like Beast, because it is a 5 ink character that can sing songs like Whole New World, Let It Go, Grab Your Swords in a deck like this, you know what I mean? This deck is extremely powerful, and I really want to mention that people have been adding Nothing to Hide in their Sapphire builds, mainly because it does add consistency to your deck. You're able to just draw cards a little bit easier, and if you're playing Nothing to Hide, you're going to be able to dig through your deck faster. But one of the cooler purposes with Nothing to Hide is if you're able to play around your opponent's hand effectively, then you can pretty much guarantee that you're going to win that game, because if you use Nothing to Hide and you know your opponent has a Tremaine and a Be Prepared, and you can set that up and you can play around that effectively enough to turn around the game state, I think with that information is more than a reasonable assumption, right? Cards like Nothing to Hide, really undervalued and underappreciated in a deck like this, especially when you're ramping so much ink that that extra 1 ink to draw a card almost doesn't matter, you know what I mean? So an awesome card to be able to use if you just don't want to play around your opponent's Be Prepared and Grab Your Swords. If you don't feel like guessing about those kinds of things, maybe consider playing Nothing to Hide, because the information you get is so crucial. And then even when you have Nothing to Hide, right, and you use it and you look at your opponent's hand and they don't have these AoEs that you're afraid of, not only are you in a good position because you know that they don't have the cards you're afraid of, but number 2, you just gained so much valuable information because you can kind of predict their next couple turns, right? What's cool about card games and TCGs and cards like this is that if you can predict your opponent's next couple turns, then you can obviously play around that and you benefit from that. So sometimes that might be the play. If you can make good reads on the opponent, you might want to use cards like Nothing to Hide so that you can basically play chess against them and start predicting what they're going to do, so that you can play around it by, you know, not questing with certain characters, not playing certain cards, or, you know, not using certain songs or actions until you're ready to use them. But Sapphire Steel seeing a lot more meta competitive play in the last couple of weeks. It makes sense now why Hades and Bell are $20 legendaries plus, basically, and in general, if you are just tired of Ruby Amethyst, this deck might be the deck for you. Personally, this deck does use Whole New World to its greatest ability, and I feel like sometimes it can be a little bit reliant on it, but there is enough draw power in this deck with Flavorsham, Sad Beast, Popsicles, Nothing to Hide, etc., etc. You can definitely start digging through your deck fast enough, so you will see the cards you need to see, you know, assuming you can get past those like early game turns against Ruby Amethyst. But this deck does have a really good Ruby Amethyst matchup, because most of the time they waste a lot of resources on you, and if you drop like 1 or 2 bells by the time they've used a lot of their resources, those bells start questing for 5 and you get to 20 lore way faster than they do. So this deck is definitely scary in my opinion. A very awesome deck to see in top 8. But now we're gonna get into top 4. We have our 4th place list. Now this was a Ruby Amethyst list piloted by Julian Hammer. Shout out you for getting 4th place in this amazing huge free tournament. So this person was awarded some cash money for as a prize for their tournament run, which is always cool to see. Playing 4 of the following: 4 Olaf, 4 Pascal, Mim Snake, Mim Fox. We also have 4 of the Mini Surfer, Merlin Goat, Merlin Rabbit, Friends on the Other Side, and Be Prepared. Now we're playing 3 of the following though: LeFou, Arthur, Merlin Crab, Maui, Yzma, Scary Beyond Reason, Teeth and Ambitions. And then we have 2 of the following: Minnie Mouse, the 1-drop Minnie Mouse, Maleficent Sorceress, and Sorcerer's Spellbook. So that's going to be all to round off that deck. Now this deck looking fairly aggressive. One of the things I want to point out immediately is that we're not seeing any Lady Tremaine and Maleficent Monstrous Dragon in this deck. So to see a list get 4th place without playing Lady Tremaine is pretty interesting, because for the longest time I thought Lady Tremaine was a staple in Ruby Amethyst. Like, you need to play 3 to 4 Lady Tremaine, right? But if you're using earlier game cards like Arthur, LeFou, you know, to quest as much as possible, you probably don't need to waste your turn 6 on playing a card like Tremaine, or maybe you just need more Inkables in your deck. But Yzma gets the job done just as fine. If you've been abusing Arthur and LeFou by turns 3, 4, 5, by the time you get to turn 6, you're really only using Yzma to get rid of an opposing problem, or you're using Yzma to shuffle in your own rabbit. So most of the time you can kind of aggressively take control of at least the lore race with this deck, and then Yzma's going to be able to finish the game off, because you'll be able to protect your characters. Letting your opponent draw 2 is just kind of irrelevant if you're already at more than 10 lore in a deck like this, because oftentimes you can really just draw the right series of goats, snakes, Arthurs, and you go from 12 to 20 lore in 2 turns. And your opponent is spending all of turns 1 through 4 trying to make sure they can even combat your early game LeFou snake, or if you start off with Pascal, because we're playing 4 Pascals, if Pascal staying on the board since turn 1 is going to add a lot of pressure by the time they get to like turn 4 or 5, you know what I mean? But a very interesting list nonetheless to see that we're not playing Lady Tremaine in this list, or Maleficent Monstrous Dragon. We're also not playing those big bombs like Elsa, Ursula. This deck is really just trying to get to 20 lore as fast as possible is what it's looking like. Now we have our 3rd place list. This is from none other than himself, Zephyr from YouTube. If you guys don't know Zephyr's YouTube channel, you should. He is rank 1 on Pixelborn right now. He's probably one of the better Lorcana players that I personally watch. He's on Twitch, he's on YouTube, and he is personally responsible for people playing Gaston in the Amber Steel list, and he's made a bunch of deck lists in this format and last format that has inspired the current meta trends, whether it be Ruby Amber, or decks that play like Steel, or even just fun decks that he plays on his Twitch stream. In general though, amazing player right here. I thought he was gonna get 1st place. Ended up in 3rd place, and he's playing this list consisting of 4 of the following: Cinderella, Bomb Sensation, the 2-drop Hercules, Ariel, Spectacular Singer, Gaston, Beast, Tragic Hero, the shiftable Hercules, Tinkerbell, Giant Fairy, Strength of a Raging Fire, Whole New World, Sleepy's Flute, and Grab Your Swords. Those are all at 4. He has 3 of the following: Benja, Rapunzel, and Let the Storm Rage On. Now we're playing 2 of the following: Prince Eric, Robin Hood, and World's Greatest Criminal Mind. And last but not least, we have 1 copy of Cinderella Stout-Hearted. Very interesting, because we're not playing the Cinderella Knight in Training, but we are playing the 1-drop Cinderella. I wonder why only 1 Cinderella Stout-Hearted. You know, I do feel like you run through the cards in this deck for sure. This is probably the scariest version of Amber Steel that I think is the scariest version that I've played against, because this list in particular just feels like it curves so well, and you have 8 targets to be able to sing Whole New World before turn 5, because you're playing Ariel and Gaston. And I feel like this is an extremely powerful deck when it goes first. Oftentimes they'll always satisfy their curve from 1 to 5, being able to play a 1-cost character on turn 1, a 2-cost on turn 2, etc., etc. And if you can set up a curve of Cinderella, Hercules, Ariel, by the time you hit like turns 4 and 5, you can shift your Hercules, play another 1-drop character, and then you start singing a Whole New World. And it's a lot of pressure in the early game, especially cards like the shift Hercules. This guy has resist +2, and he's also going to have a 6 strength, 3 willpower stat. So he can challenge almost any character and clear it successfully by turns 4 or 5, right? And Sleepy's Flute is gonna just add the cherry on top to all of that aggressive pressure, because if they open up with Sleepy's Flute in the beginning of the game, you're gonna be racing against them to make sure that you don't lose out to their songs. And multiple Sleepy's Flutes, like I said earlier, just means that they're gonna be able to double up on that lore. They're gonna be able to gain the lore twice as fast. And don't even get me started when they open up 3 to 4 Sleepy's Flutes, because that's just not fair. The fact that Hercules, Eric, and Robin Hood are all 2 ink characters, but they all have a 3 willpower stat line is really important in this meta, because they don't lose out to Let the Storm Rage On, Grab Your Swords, Teeth and Ambitions, and they keep that constant pressure going. And sometimes you're able to keep that Hercules alive, you can shift with him, and then even later on heal him back with Rapunzel if he's taken 2 damage or something like that, which is pretty impactful. But congrats to Zephyr on this 3rd place run. He was streaming the tournament, I believe, on Twitch as well, so be sure to go check out their Twitch vlogs. I do believe they're still going to be on there if you want to be able to check out their tournament run personally. But amazing player. I highly recommend you check out his YouTube channel because he definitely knows what he's doing, what he's talking about. Now in second place, we have an Emerald Amber Mufasa list piloted by Woo Seok Oh. Now this list is a list that has been popping up a lot in the last week or so in real life tournaments, online tournaments. I've seen a couple videos on YouTube that have been talking about this list, and personally I think this might be the better version of how you play Mufasa in the format. You know what I mean? The Ruby Mufasa deck is really cool, but it just doesn't seem necessary, right? And there's a lot of cards that I feel like when you're playing in the Ruby Mufasa deck, you don't want to hit off Mufasa, and I feel like in this version there's not that many bad cards to hit off Mufasa, you know what I mean? So we're gonna go over this list real quick, explaining 4 of the following: Stitch, Newt Dog, Queen Goons, Simba, Protective Cub, Flynn, Ryder, Doc. We have Peter Pan, the 3 ink with evasive. We have 4 Tinkerbell, most helpful. 4 Mufasa. 4 Queen, the shiftable Queen. And then we have 4 Ray and 4 Stitch Rockstar. Last but not least, 4 Genie on the Job. And we're here playing 3 of the following. We have Hades, Rapunzel, Kuzco, and Mad Hatter. Check it out. We're seeing cards from the first format make an appearance in one of the biggest tournaments ever for Lorcana. In the second format, Kuzco, Mad Hatter coming back into the Emerald scene. I knew these cards were good. They quest for 3. Hello, Mad Hatter draws you cards, and Kuzco's gonna banish any character that banishes him. Can you imagine how good it must feel to hit a Kuzco off of the Mufasa, because you're hitting a character that now is gonna also give you a +1 and it has ward. In general, hitting an evasive character off Mufasa is probably really powerful too. Sometimes you lose the Ruby Amethyst matchup just because they have too many surfers. Now you're telling me that if you end up with a Tinkerbell most helpful and a Ray, that's not pressure, you know what I mean? So we are playing 16 evasive characters. It's 4 copies of each Ray, Peter Pan, Genie, and Tinkerbell most helpful. So seeing one of those evasive characters off of Mufasa is probably not necessarily the most outrageous thing, right? But it just gets better the higher cost you go. So if you see a Genie, you're going to be able to bounce a character on the field to the hand as well, which is super impactful in tempo. But in general, like if you just hit an evasive character off of that, it probably means you're going to be questing for a while for free. I was watching the finals for this match. It was very back and forth between this deck and the first place deck list, and let me tell you, this deck is definitely something that I have to learn to play around, and you're gonna have to pay attention to if at your next locals, because I do think this deck is a menace, and I do think it does a lot of powerful things. One of the crazier interactions that I noticed is that when you play Sad Beast on turn 5, they can play Genie on turn 6, and that completely just shuts off your turn 5 play, and it makes you feel so bad if you're playing a deck like Amber Steel and you were really relying on that beast draw. And especially when they've been going from turns 1 through 5 playing Stitch, Flynn Rider, Rapunzel, Mufasa, you know what I mean? All these characters adding so much pressure, then you're able to even shift them to add even more pressure. Sometimes you can win the game just by controlling the game state with Queen commanding presence, because your characters have evasive. What's really crazy is that they just kind of sit on the board for a while, right? And oftentimes if you set up a Queen and an evasive character, your opponent can't quest with anything, because if they quest with anything, you get to quest with your Queen, and then you can lower the strength on the opposing characters, and your evasive characters will be super strong. So what's really cool is that your evasive characters are very sticky, like they just won't leave the board because most characters can't challenge them. And if you need to out something, the Queen in this deck just does so much more than other decks, because like I said, the evasive characters, they're not leaving anywhere. It adds a lot of pressure, and it basically stops your opponent from questing like freely. Obviously we're not playing any actions or any songs in this deck because we want to maximize the potential for Mufasa. I think when you're mulliganing with this deck, you just really want to focus on getting a nice curve. You probably do want to hard mulligan for cards like Rapunzel and Mufasa though, because I think playing Mufasa on turn 5 or even having Doc Mufasa combo is just too strong. You know what I mean? Playing Mufasa on turn 4, it seems really good, but those are probably the things you want to mulligan for. Obviously you probably keep stuff like Stitch Rockstar in your hand, right, when you have the Stitch combo, but you really want to focus, I think, on trying to get off that Doc Mufasa combo, or just trying to refill your resources with Rapunzel at some point. Awesome deck, generates a lot of advantage, and if you are a player who enjoys tempo-based decks, this might be a deck for you. And finally, we have the first place list. This is a Ruby Amethyst list piloted by Francis Cormier. Shout out you for getting first place at this 270 person online Lorcana tournament. Wow, kind of crazy. And it was a game 3 in the finals. It was such a back and forth match between this deck and the Emerald Mufasa list. You know, I think a lot of people wanted to see the underdog win, but it was really cool to see Ruby Amethyst, which is the best deck of the format, playing against a new contender for one of the quote-unquote best decks of the format, right? So if you do get a chance, go watch those videos of that matchup. But in general, this list looking a little different than some of the other ones we've seen in the top 8, playing for the following: Olaf, Minnie Mouse, Mim Snake, Mim Fox, Surfer Mini, Merlin Goat, Merlin Rabbit, Maui, Lady Tremaine, and 4 friends on the other side with 4 Be Prepared. Right? Pretty basic. Then we have 3 of the following. We're playing Teeth and Ambitions, Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, Ursula, Maleficent Sorcerers, and then 3 Kuzco. Now Kuzco is the 2-drop character, and I've said this before in the other videos. You're playing the Kuzco 2-drop character because sometimes in this deck you just literally need a 2-ink character to play on turn 2 when you don't open up Snake or when you don't open up 1-drop Snake. And it's really important to have that tempo, and Kuzco just lets you do that while drawing a card, which is gonna let you see the cards you need to see even faster. So if you have like a bad mulligan or something, or if you're really looking for like the next rabbit, or you're looking for your next bomb, sometimes having that Kuzco on turn 2 makes that little difference in being able to draw an extra card, so you do ensure you see the cards in your deck that you want to see. Ruby Amethyst being so polarizing in this format just makes it so I think a lot of us wanted to see this list lose, but nonetheless, congratulations to Francis over here for getting first place with this Ruby Amethyst list. And in general, you can definitely see the skill between the players playing around each other's cards. One player playing around the opposing Rapunzels, the other player playing around the opposing Tremaines and Be Prepared and whatnot. So a very tough matchup in general everybody has against the Ruby Amethyst list, but decks like Mufasa Emerald style lists are definitely going to give them a run for their money because they're so aggressive and so good on tempo that if the Ruby Amethyst player doesn't have consistent outs every single turn while you're consistently putting characters on the board, you're gonna outpace them, which is really crazy because this is a deck that generates free lore, you know, with Merlin Goat and stuff like that. But against certain aggro decks, the Ruby Amethyst list doesn't win necessarily, right? And I almost want to say that the Emerald Mufasa list is as aggressive as the hyper aggro Amber Amethyst list, right? And we all know that the hyper aggro lists do really good against Ruby Amethyst, so I think the Emerald Mufasa has just as good a matchup against the Ruby Amethyst list, you know what I mean? But it can go either way. It really just depends on whose day it really is that day. But that is all for the top 8 breakdown of the pack Return of the Mim online tournament hosted by Thea Beastie and the pack Discord. You guys need to check them out. If you guys haven't heard of them, like I said, please follow them on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever they are. And if you guys are a Lorcana Goon, remember to subscribe to the channel and join our Discord too, so that you can be part of the Lorcana Goon squad. Again, it's so cool to see free tournaments like this where players can actually win cash prizes, you know what I mean? In general, nobody has to do this for us. So I do want to give a big thank you to Thea Beastie and everyone who was involved in putting this tournament together. I want to play the next one. I couldn't play this one because I had to work, unfortunately. But I did get to play the first one, and it was a very smoothly ran tournament. So I do look forward to more in the future, and I really hope there is going to be more in the future for this tournament style. But until then, remember to stay tuned to Lorcana Goons, and we will see you goons next time.